Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Great Canadian Conversation. So today I'm with Lisa Proust, and we'll be discussing COVID stats, our YouTube channel, and the Montreal March on September 12th. So Lisa, thanks for being here today, and welcome to the discussion.
Thank you for having me.
Right on. So Lisa, would you be able to tell us more about yourself? So you're an immigrant. You moved to Canada a little while back, and you're a bit worried about what's happening on in Canada right now.
Yes, so I moved to Canada in the year 2000. I had lived in different countries. I lived in Colombia, where I was born. I lived also in Spain when I was studying. I lived in France when I was studying. And I lived for a little bit in the US as well. And I moved to Canada, to Toronto in the year 2000. And then I moved to the Montreal area in 2019. So I've been here for a year. And as per your comment, I am concerned because right now I am seeing a reduction of our freedom. I am in Colombia, in particularly. It was very difficult to enjoy what I call peace of mind, that you don't have to worry about your life, you don't have to worry about your property. And I enjoyed that for many, many years in Toronto. And even here in Montreal, a couple of times I actually lost my wallet, and it came back to me with all my pieces of ID. So I love Canada. I love that way of living, which I can trust everyone, and I become also more trustworthy. But suddenly, as a result of this situation since February, we are seeing a diminishing level of our freedom, of our rights. And that's the reason why we're talking today.
Yes, that's true. I think, in a sense, we've kind of lost as many of our ideas that we espouse here in Canada or in the Western world that have always been self-evident. So for me, growing up, freedom of expression, individual rights and liberties, individual responsibilities was always something that didn't have to be defended. And today, those ideas are challenged, but there's nobody home to defend them, and that's it's an issue. And I think that's probably why we're losing so much ground. But yeah, and it's got me worried too. So I'm glad that you're bringing that up. Um, so Lisa, so you started a YouTube channel, and you're sharing some information with the public. I think it's mostly to share information. So what led you to that point?
I started to be interested in understanding a little bit more about trends that I didn't really understand since November of 2018. And I started to spend more and more time, not just reading books that I used to love, but going online to try to get into what you would call conspiracy theories. And then in February of this year, I started to get even deeper into a lot of documents that I was able to get online about the infamous Event 201, about all the Rockefeller Foundation, information about Rothschilds, information about lawsuits, information, a lot of things that eventually became the fundamental basis for everything that we are experiencing right now. So it was very harsh when I first, as they say, woke up, because I used to have a very superficial life on which I used to work out and go shopping and have a wonderful job. I didn't really care too much about politicians. I didn't know even, I never heard the voice of Trudeau. I didn't care. I never voted. Just leave me alone. I know you all lie. You're stealing my money. Just let me be happy. But then it became so evident that they are manipulating data, that they are not telling the truth. So by May, I decided to start to share the information that I had. And the way I saw it is I had in my head a whole explanation of how everything is interassociated. But I knew it was too heavy to do it all in once. So I started to put piece by piece, and I created about 50 to 60 videos. And then I created one that is called Connecting the Dots, that talks big picture about the whole, as I shared, interassociation between all those pieces. And then I became a little bit more interested in how can we help each other. It's not only about scaring people. To me, facts are what makes me less scared. So after that, how can I help even more? So I started to put together meditation videos, tips to raise your vibration. And right now I am in a combination of both. So I put meditation videos. And as you know, I'm very interested in doing the live stream this Saturday for the March in Montreal. And the reason being is because I always know that the media lies, but when I went to Ottawa last couple of weeks, I was there, and I have my footage from Twitter. 6,000 people, everybody was supporting the police, everybody was very respectful, we didn't do any damage. And then the media said there were 500 people max, and that we were going to ask for defunding the police. I spoke to 3 police officers. They were lovely. Everybody was in great harmony. So it really annoyed me that they would lie
So
it,
blatantly. Yeah.
it's just I couldn't, but I said, but I have the videos, what are you talking about? So I decided, even if I have to pay, I'll do a live stream on Saturday of Montreal, because I'm so close to Montreal, and I know that Montreal people really love to express themselves, and I'm really looking forward to it. But the objective of my channel, of the live stream, of everything is share the truth. Just you make the decision. Is it 6,000 or 7,000? Here's the facts. You tell me how many. I'm not going to tell you a lie. That's the whole point.
That's right. So one thing I noticed too, like what has me worried a little bit, is that the media attacks people that disagree with them. So if you're truly a journalist who would stick to reporting facts, what I've noticed in Quebec, especially, and other medias, it could be in Canada, US, it's a pattern. It's a very similar pattern. My wife personally is from the Philippines. It's the same thing there too. They are attacking people that have a different or diverging opinion, and that is an issue. For me, I have no problem trusting authority, but in order to do so, they need to have credibility, right? And they don't have that because they lost their integrity by lying to the people. And we caught them, and I'm a bit annoyed by that. Um, and that's why I felt the need to start my channel, is to share the truth with people and factual information. I think the challenge that we're going to witness is that people don't really trust other citizens yet to look for information. They still trust authority, especially in Canada. Not so much in the U.S. Philippines is shifting a bit to UK, but in Canada, a lot of people still trust the CBC. I don't know how many, but too many in my opinion. So hopefully we can share the truth to people, connect. Maybe we can use our connectivity as a defense mechanism where we can actually put information out, and people will trust, but they'll go verify and they'll go look for themselves, and hopefully they can gain our trust, and we can help each other out as citizens, as not necessarily as French Canadians, as immigrants or English Canadians, but just as Canadians. That's our highest value or common denominator. And that's very, very important. Otherwise, it's going to be tough years ahead for us if we continue on that path.
Yes, and I think you touched about something that is very important, and is the fact that we have 2 very distinctive and different languages in Canada. And that sometimes creates a little bit of issues. I noticed when I started to do my videos in both English and French that I would get almost the same amount of hits for both languages. And that's when I realized, oh my gosh, I need to really start to do. And I noticed that now that I do 3 languages on each video, people say thank you very much, because obviously Spanish is my first language. So for me, it's easy to do that. I spent 20 years in Toronto. My English is very good. I have an accent, but it's good vocabulary.
Yeah.
And then my French is just starting to become better, and I make a lot of mistakes, but at least people appreciate the effort. And I think it's important, to your point, that we unite everyone. So I think the combination of both languages would allow us to do that. And in my live stream is exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to do it in 3 languages as well.
If you guys are interested, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. This is really going to help us grow our channels. I'm going to put the link for Lisa's channel in the description. So Okay, so let's talk about COVID stats. Lisa, I really liked your presentation that you did. It
Thank you.
was very factual. It was on PowerPoint. So I thought it'd be a good idea to go through them and just bring the facts to people. And if they agree with them, then or you can go have a look at them and see
Right,
if they agree or not, to see for themselves.
right.
So I'll just put this in full screen here, full screen,
Thank
and
you. Yes. As you say, every single one of my PowerPoints always have the links. They're fact-based. This is, I think, the third or fourth time that I update the data. So I have done this in the past, but obviously every day it changes. So I don't do it every day, but this is the most updated one that has information from the government of Canada effective September the 7th of 2020. So here you can see how both the cases and the deaths are not only going down, but most importantly, the deaths are completely flat. So I talk in my video about let's flatten the fear, not flatten the curve, because there's no curve anymore. And the only thing that we definitely see is that there's a fear propaganda that continues to be deployed across all mediums. You see TV ads, you see billboards, you see people, you see radio. Everywhere you go, there is this image and this wording that consistently talks about this. So definitely that fear propaganda is very real.
yes, and I think it started to like the way they presented the information, just stay quiet, stay calm, just obey, right? Um, I grew up on a farm, and that's what we do to cows when sometimes they just gave birth to a calf. Maybe people are not gonna like my analogy, but the cows will get a bit sensitive, and then what you'll do is you'll just pat them so that they get quiet down, so that they don't kick you, right? And it's a bit the same mechanism that I've noticed that was used in the media in Quebec. That was "Ça va bien aller," uh, stay home, stay safe, right? Just stay on your couch. You're gonna defend your country by staying on your couch and staying docile. They actually use that language, especially in Quebec. I didn't follow Alberta so much, but it looked more a way of. I heard the word yesterday. It was neuro linguistic programming. And that new normal. Whatever you do, it's not going to change anything. You're helpless. Just accept it. And then we're
Yes.
telling us and people, well, you gotta flatten the curve. But the curve is pretty flat now. I don't think you can get
There's
much
no
flatter than
curve
that.
anymore.
That's right. And then you're not a conspiracy theorist. You're pulling. This is actually from the Canadian government. There's various sources. I've verified some of them too. I've made other videos with similar information, either from the CDC, WHO. So there's a disconnect somewhere, and that's what has me worried a bit.
100%.
So we'll move on to the next slide here.
So here, new cases is also going down. And I question here, why are we even talking about cases? It's like saying, how many cancer patients do we have? So you never hear that. You hear, oh, the survival rate of the radiotherapy or chemotherapy is such and such. So they always talk about the cure, but they never talk about anything negative because they want to raise money for that. So they consider a survival in cancer after 1 year, when in reality, I mean, that doesn't mean anything. So you can see how the media manipulates the information to show you what they want to tell and how they want to spin the story. So in this specific chart, I'm talking about the fact that the number of cases do not matter. That is the same as saying who has a cold. This is a 99.98% survival rate. So it's the same as a cold. It's effectively the same. If you don't take care of a cold, you can actually develop pneumonia. So this is the same. It's only that the pneumonia kicks in faster because it's a very variant of a corona. The cold is also a coronavirus, so it's exactly the same.
And
And
I
then
guess you also have the underlying conditions and the age, but I think you touched on that a little bit later in the next
I
slides.
do absolutely. I talk about age for sure in the next one, and then I say here with 37.5 million people in Canada, 247 people that have the number of cases for the 7th of September is 0.001%. And then later in the presentation also talk about how many zeros do we need after the comma to even talk about this. So just to once again reiterate, they're just maximizing the exposure of something that is really nothing.
So in other words, even if 37.5 million Canadians were symptomatic or asymptomatic, it doesn't matter if people don't die.
Correct. And also, I was actually listening to some information earlier today that they say, particularly for statistics in France, and they were disclosing officially that about 90% of the positives are based on people who are either completely recovered or in stages where they are not contagious. So, bottom line, only 10% of the people that are reported as positive COVID, they are actually a potential risk of contagious, being vectors of contagion to others. But even those, you're going to have 99.90%. It's just so tiny. It's just so tiny.
Yeah, so 10% of them would actually be at risk of
Of
propagating
being vectors. It's
the
called vectors.
diseases to
Yeah,
other
exactly.
people. Yeah, at the time of the
But
test.
I mean, if I'm exposed to you and you have it, that doesn't mean that I will have it. In fact, certain doctors say I need to be exposed for over 10 minutes in a row for me to get it. It's just, but again, to your point, I think that what we lack is an ambassador that puts all these pieces together and bombards the population with the facts.
It's true, because I think too a lot of people that haven't been exposed to information outside of the traditional media, they really have high hopes in the vaccine, and I think you touch on that too a little bit further. Do you?
I absolutely do.
Yeah. All right. So we'll keep that for the next slide. Now here you have the number of deaths, pretty much, which is also flat as we can see.
Yes, at the peak of the death numbers, you can see here there were 222 on May 31st. But now in September the 7th, we had only one death in Quebec. So my question once again, look at the number of zeros I have to put in order for us to indicate what is the proportion of people that are dying out of this. And the whole country of 37.5 million people, you had one death, and you are really scared about this. This is the part that I'm concerned about what you were mentioning before. The media is not talking about this. The governments are, particularly the government of Quebec, is announcing that as effective this Saturday is going to, and I'm using Legault, that is the Prime Minister of Quebec, clamping down on people who are not wearing masks. So definitely there is this need to control. To me, it's just an opportunity to increase the power. They really like that, and they're using the excuse to make it happen.
So I don't know what you think of that, but for me, it's not so much about the mask. Everybody is kind of, or the media has labeled people as in two camps, pro-mask or anti-mask. And really, it's not about the mask. It's the entire lie surrounding COVID-19 that was propagated by the media and the governments. So you can think about all of your individual rights or forced lockdowns. You lost your freedom of mobility, freedom of association, freedom of movement for a certain amount of time. Now, if you get sick, we're going to force you to get locked down for a certain amount of time, unless you get a test done, unless you do this and do that. We've sacrificed our economic future, especially for our kids, by burdening them with $300 billion worth of debt.
Correct.
That somebody will have to pay at some point.
Right.
We've prevented people from earning a living with dignity, right?
Correct.
Through the fruit of their own labor. We've destroyed tens of thousands of businesses. From last number I heard in Quebec was 18,000 businesses that are going to go down under. For what? So does that make you a conspiracy theorist to ask those questions? That's the kind of questions that anybody would, or any reasonable person would ask. To me, it looks a little bit like the government got caught with their pants down, and now they're trying to cover up the lie by accusing people that are denouncing them. And they just try to keep pushing because they got nowhere to hide and they don't want to admit guilt.
Correct.
Now, at that point, if you look at the police, the nurses, everybody who's been silenced It reminds me because I've been reading a little bit on the history too, to sidetrack for a second here. And you've had the two worst regimes that the world has ever seen was the communist regimes. Well, it could have been Russia, Cambodia, China has been responsible for 100 million deaths. Nazi Germany that killed 6 to 9 million Jews. And it wasn't Hitler that killed necessarily all those people. It was all those people that perpetuated the lie. Either people that thought they were doing good things when they were obviously doing something that was bad and found out too late that they were doing the wrong thing, or people that don't believe it or believe it, sorry, but refuse to do something because they're afraid for their families. They're afraid to lose um, their jobs, right? So they stay silent and they don't know how to fight back. And this is where I have an issue. Um, and I could pile on to that. What about the social distancing? So somebody says, for example, you know what, Damien, I don't feel good today. Well, I would be the first one to say, come here, I'll give you a hug. You did a good job today. Well, I'll give you a handshake. This is normal. This is what makes you human. And we've taken all of that away. So, in a sense, we can say that we've dehumanized people, and it's very bad. So it's not about the mask. It's the mask is the how can I say that? It is it's all of that is a lie, the perpetuation of the lie through the mask, symbol of oppression, symbol of control, and it's not something that is a symbol of well-being. Um, and then you can take the example of Alexander Solzhenitsyn. So I'm not sure if you ever heard about him.
I read him. I read the 3 books of
Yeah,
the
so I
Gulag
read only
Archipelago.
one, but I managed to get the outline of the ideas there. Um, he's pretty much the only person that's made it through the gulags for 10 years, stayed there, made it out alive, and wrote a book about it. And that's why we know so little about communist Russia. But the idea was that he asked himself, he's like, how did I end up there? I didn't do anything wrong. And then he thought about all the times he could have said or done something, but he didn't because he thought it would not change anything. And I see a lot of that in Canada right now where people say, well, it's not my job, doesn't affect me, it's okay, doesn't matter, can't do anything about it. So now you correlate that, or you scale that up to 1 million or 100 million people that act in the same direction, and that's how you end up with those regimes in place. Um, so anyway, he ended up writing a book about it. The book got smuggled through France, came back into Russia, and it had a big influence or a big impact in taking down the communist regime. It just goes to show that how important it is for one individual or people at large to speak up and speak out when they see issues like that or tyranny brought upon them by their government. So
It's you remind me the manuscript from the Gulag Archipelago had to circulate very fast in order for people not to get caught. So when I don't know if you have seen the 3 volumes; they are quite big. So it's
they're
a
big,
total of
yes.
all of these, and you had only 24 hours to read it. Of course, I don't think anyone really read it; they just scanned through it. But you had to pass it very fast, and that's how it was preserved. Because to your point, it would have been destroyed. I want to go back about a couple of things that I think are very important from what you were saying. The first one is the part of dehumanization. I spoke about this specifically in videos in 3 languages in my channel because I fully agree with you. The mask is a symbol of repression and it's a symbol of dehumanization. We are meant to enjoy emotions. Our faces express everything. Our mouth, our smiles, our eyes. It's a combination of signals that we connect. So the usage of mask makes very difficult even to understand when others are talking. So that's one thing. The other thing I wanted to talk about was the fact that between 0 and 7 years old is when kids develop a lot of their psychological and emotional makeup. they also mimic their parents' expressions. So if you're wearing a mask all the time, you will definitely have socialization issues, never mind the psychological and emotional and even physical as well, because you don't even know how to express very well. So from 0 to 7 is critical for kids. So reinforcing masks across Canada for anyone 2 years up, it's extremely dangerous for that fundamental step that becomes a new generation for this country. That, to your point, is also going to be burdened with the 350 or what. It's going to be worse. I mean, that's the infamous snapshot from July.
And
It's going to be worse.
could you develop a certain attachment for that mask too? When they tell you, hey, you can remove it, I,
Right.
I think it will come. Yeah.
Yes, in fact, I think that people use it because they feel safe. They don't understand that by touching it, it becomes a focus of infections. They don't understand that it's 0.06 to 0.14 microns, and these masks are not even capable of trapping anything below 0.30 microns. So again, it's math, pure math, but it's just simple math. People just are not inclined to look into that. The last thing I wanted to say, going back to your comment of how people, when they are having a hard day or something, they want a hug, there are multiple scientific studies that indicate that there is a correlation between violence and lack of touch. So even in animals, I remember reading when I was very, very young, less than 14 years old, studies about monkeys that were separated from moms, and by this, the mere fact of not being touched by the mother, they would become more violent. And the same happens, for example, with puppies. When you buy a puppy, they tell you have to socialize your puppy or it becomes very aggressive. So imagine if this is just in animals, what happens also with humans, that we are more complex and the way we perceive the world is even multisensorial. So it's definitely creating a lot of issues from that perspective. And the last thing I wanted to make a comment about what you were saying is the fact that going about Alexander and the Gulag archipelago, um, there was a saying in Colombia when I was growing up that it was something along the lines of, it's not my problem because it's not happening to me until it happens to me. So it's exactly to your point. Everybody is receiving CERB, or they have their, how do you say, the postponing of their mortgage, or they are surviving from savings, or whatever the case might be. But it's going to hit us all. My best friend Toronto has an incredibly smart saying that is, we all have buffers. What is different between us is the size of the buffer. So when the CERB, that is an artificial manner of creating apathic behavior from the society, when that goes away, is when everything is going to become a very cruel reality. So to your point, it's important that we speak, and we speak even before further steps such as the ones that we're seeing in Victoria and Australia will come to us. Because the way I see it, they were chosen within the globe, within the planet. Australia and New Zealand were chosen because they are isolated. So nobody can get in. If you close the airports, I have full control of the island. Australia is an island, New Zealand is an island. So for them, it's very easy to control. It's more difficult, let's say, if you start in, by example, Italy or Germany, because you have multiple points of entry. So to me, it's just a matter of time. And it's important that, to your point, we all stand up and do whatever is necessary. We talk to one person or 5 people, whatever we can do, but whomever has good facts, to share it with whomever they can.
That's right. And I think it's important to your point too, to remain factual, not necessarily attack people that have a divergent opinion. Sometimes they're just not there, or they're living in fear. So if those ideas, that fear or that hatred, sometimes is what controls them. So for me, I choose to rationality, right? And we still
And
have,
there's another side of the story that nobody has really tackled in depth. I tried once, but it's extremely difficult to get data. And is the increase in suicides, the increase in depression, and the increase of post-traumatic stress disorder. Because even in multiple studies. Again, all my videos talk about this is the research, this is the data, etc. There are over 50 studies that indicate that when you do confinement of people, even for 10 days, because that's the typical infamous minimum time that you should be apart from others to minimize the risk or avoid the risk of contaminating others. After 10 days, there are post-traumatic stress disorder issues for 3 years.
Wow.
10 days, 3 years. And here, what we're doing is isolating people. We have already completed, at the very least, could be more, depending on where you are, at the very least 6 months. So I can guarantee you that at this point in time, there is not a single person who doesn't have at certain level, and again, we talk about degrees, certain level post-traumatic stress disorder, because it's a fact that the studies talk about that. So if you get it for 10 days, imagine after 6 months.
Wow. And another thing too, I was thinking about was especially with the forced lockdowns. Not everybody is locked down right now. I know we're slowly getting away from that, except if you have the virus. It's about as bad as leprosy, or if you had AIDS, pretty much people will look at you and they want to lock you down. Um, but the story in Quebec is the one that struck me the most with the elderly people. So they force them to be locked down. They said it's for your own good. Did not allow their family to go and see them. Some of them pass away in their own, excuse my language, but their own shit and piss. They were dehumanized. It's literally what it was, in my opinion. And then I asked people that supported the lockdowns, the mask, and all that. If you had the possibility of living for one more year, right? But you had to be locked down and never see your family again before you died. Would you choose that, or would you rather to live for one more day, possibly die from COVID-19, but at least die in the arms of people that you love? And I've seen some people almost think about that and start crying. And that's the reality of it. And that's why you would never have the government take away your individual rights or lock people down. It should never have happened to begin with.
Absolutely.
This is a little bit why people they're saying they're against the mask. That's what they're against. Is against the entire lie and the tyranny that came with it. So
yes, because in the video that I have in my channel, it's a dark video from a gentleman who's dressed, his face is painted like a clown, but like a scary clown. And he's laughing in this really creepy way, saying, just put the mask, it's just a mask. And then he makes fun of people saying, in 4 months, you allow the government to make you put something that doesn't work, controls where you go, where you don't go, says that Walmart is okay, but all the rest of the businesses are not okay. They have control your credit cards. You can't use cash anymore. They have you living in fear, but it's just a mask, and just keep on wearing it. And you know what? Next is the vaccine, but it's just the vaccine. Just don't be a bad citizen. Just put the mask and get the vaccine. So it's a 2 or 3 minute video that illustrates in a very succinct manner the whole situation and how scary it is when we just keep on repeating, it's just a mask, it's just a vaccine, oh, it doesn't matter, oh, it's not that bad, it's for your own good, it's for the good of others. So when you look at the other side of the coin, when you see that it's not for your own good, because they are not protecting anyone, this is less than the flu, so what are we protecting ourselves for? Nothing.
The other point, I think, too, before we continue with more COVID stats, because we kind of sidetracked here a bit, but it's really interesting. You're bringing up a lot of good points. My concern is that eventually businesses, right, that have spent a lot of money, those are still in business, fortunately enough, we're going to have to take measures to make sure that this does not happen again. So what are they going to do? So I was at the TD Bank yesterday, and people were logging in. You had to register at the entrance to say that you were coming into the bank and then leaving, and then you had to follow a certain distance too. Like there's a little circles on the ground saying we are apart but together, or something like that. But it was pretty Orwellian. And what I can see coming would be facial recognition, more control, more measures like that, or even having some companies say, "Well, you cannot work here until you get a vaccine," and therefore compromising the integrity of your body. There's two paths we can take right now. Either we say nothing, do nothing, and we're going to be pushed all that technology in a way that we might not like, or we can put an end to it and say, no, we should never have locked down anybody. This whole thing is a lie. We need to expose it, and it needs to stop, period. And that should never happen again. And no, you will not control me. You will not put a mask. You will not put a little square on the ground because you think I'm too stupid to to keep my distance or not spit in people's faces. This needs to stop. Full stop, period. Let's move on with more stats. So we got the death by provinces. Quebec's done terribly in that area. And then age and gender distribution of the diseased people. So I don't know if you wanted to add something there.
Yes, 50% of the provinces don't have any cases. They don't have anyone in the hospital. They don't even have any suspicion of anything, but they are still ensuring that everyone is in lockdown, social distancing, and masks. So again, there's no logic. There's, as per my previous comment, there is, I think in this report, there's only one death between 0 and 19 years old. But as we know, over 50% of the tests are erroneous, according to the health representative of Ontario. And we also know from people in CDC that say that about 90% of the tests are false. France is also saying today that 90% of the tests are false. There are nurses online and doctors online saying that one positive counts for three. So it says one between 0 and 19. I personally don't believe it. But even if it's true, you're closing schools, putting masks on kids. For what? For one person that very likely is infected. So why are the provinces masked when they have 0 deaths, and why are the kids muzzled? Sorry. I do have a big problem, and this is the main reason why I started my channel. I don't have kids, but I have a very sensitive spot. If I see a kid with a mask, I can't even explain to you what I feel inside. To me, there are two very vulnerable portions of the population. They're very elderly because they are very fragile, and obviously at some point in time you're just being pushed because you don't have the same strength, and when you are a little bit younger you feel a little bit more inclined to fight for things. And then the kids, because they're just following instructions. If you happen to have a parent that understands that this is wrong for you, you will be protected. But if you happen to have a father, like the person that I was talking yesterday, I was saying, oh, but it's just a mask. I mean, it's not that bad for my kid. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, you need to read a little bit to understand what this is all about. So to me, kids with masks is a big no-no. That's why I do what I do. That's why I actually in my channel share some letters that with a lawyer and with a notary can be used in the schools to prevent the usage of masks, the prevention of application of vaccines. I have them in French and in English. So my big crusade is for the kids. That one, I just can't even imagine how a parent can do that to their kids. But again, depends where your information is coming from, as per your previous comment.
So I'm just going to add something on that little slide here. You can see on the right side the age and distribution of the diseased people. So most of them, on average, will be 84 years old, when the life expectancy in Canada is 82.5. Most of them who die with COVID, but not from COVID necessarily, and that's a big distinction to make.
Exactly. Yes, 90% of the deaths are over 70 years of age. And to your point, at that point in time, you have underlying issues. It's expected that you're not going to live forever. And I make that comment sometimes in my video that we're treating this situation as if I put a mask on a shield, I will never die. It feels like that to me because they're so scared of a virus that is 99.98% survival rate. So I don't understand. Going back to this chart, the ICU by province, I love to do this chart because it indicates once again how many zeros do I need to show you if we cannot take care of 57 people in ICU in a country of 37 and a half. These are the numbers that come directly from a different website than the 37.5. That's why there is a difference in the total. But overall, what I can say is we should be able to take care of 57 people in a country of 37 million and a half. It's, to me, it's pretty basic. So why are we in panic mode, and why are we making such a fuss and creating also the infamous second wave that is a fiction, is a myth, is not really anything that can be substantiated based on facts. So it's fear for the, just for the aim of doing fearful tactics, fearful phrases, and instilling fear in the population. Yes, the reality is that we know that in the winter, typically we tend to get colds. So the issue that I have is that the regular cold has mutated at the very least 100 times. That's why you get a cold and then you can get another cold again, and you don't get cured once you have. Your antibodies work with only one mutation, not every single one of them. But it's the same base, it's the same family of corona. It is exactly the same. So that's why the tests are faulty, because it detects if you have had corona. Yes, very likely you had a cold during your life. So once you get the cold season, you're going to very likely have a lot of people with the sniffles or sneezing or whatever. And then you're going to do a test and they're going, oh, you have coronavirus. No, it's just the cold or the flu or whatever. So that's the problem that we're going to have. That is the famous second wave, is a mutation of the virus or simply the regular cold and flu. And then we're going to, again, continue the lie to increase control.
Yes, and I think too, what we see a lot in the statistics, sometimes they'll conflate coronavirus and COVID-19, which are two distinct things. Although the test does not make the distinction, they'll tell you
No,
if you
because
had a
they haven't
coronavirus.
isolated the virus. That's the whole
Right.
point. They haven't isolated the virus. So that's the reason why. And you touch base on the vaccines. And this is the important thing that we're going to talk in a minute, the vaccines. Because in the next slide, we're going to talk about what is next. So if you go back a couple of slides, please.
Oh.
There. So again, all my presentations finish with what can I do, because it's important not only that we throw the information, but we also have a call for action. So here in the next slide, I outlined that we started with a C19 with the virus. Then if you can kindly move to the next one, please.
Next one, yes.
Thank you very much. And then I showed that we are in the masks, and the next one is going to be the vaccine. So I want to stop there for a second because the vaccine has a couple of issues. The first one is that if you read in the history of vaccines that is available for everyone online, typically a vaccine requires between 10 and 15 years to be developed. The last vaccine was developed in 2001. So the issue that I have is that we have not been able to develop in many, many years a vaccine. The H1N1, the infamous swine flu, H1N1, was never able to develop a vaccine. We never had a vaccine for Ebola. We never had a vaccine for HIV. We didn't have a lot of viruses without vaccine. So you have to question as to, if you need 10 to 15 years to do something that will make sure that we don't have secondary effects, why are we rushing and saying that we can have it by year end or beginning of next year? So to me, the process is either faulty, or worse, you have been developing for 10, 15 years because you were going to deploy the virus. So either way is very difficult to understand.
So I think your next slides is about the Montreal walk.
Well, then actually, if we can kindly go back one, I also always invite people to think critically and ask themselves, does this make sense? Typically, when something doesn't make sense, it's not true. Also to know that our bodies are incredibly strong and that fear is the enemy. Every time you feel fear, it's almost like an antenna bringing that thing to yourself too. So in my profile on Twitter, I have a set of tips of how to raise your vibration to be able to remain calm. And I call it pray, meditate, spend time in nature, be away from your phone, be away from technology, to your point. And number four, try to participate in any possible manner. We talked about being indifferent in a few minutes ago. So to your point, go to marches, and the upcoming one would be in the next slide. We see a lot of upcoming marches across Canada, which makes me very, very happy. So here we can see Ottawa, September 12th at 1 p.m. That one is a combination between freedom and also the right of bear arms. Edmonton, September 12th at 1 p.m. That's a recurrent one. Every single Saturday takes place at 1 p.m. All the next one that I'm going to have a live stream on my channel is Montreal, September 12th, between 12 and 3. A lot of speakers, including Alexis Cosette, that is extremely popular here in Quebec. And also we're going to have Rocco Galati. I don't know if people know about this incredible lawyer. He is based in Toronto, and he actually lived many years in Montreal, so he also speaks French, which is excellent for this lawsuit because he's suing Trudeau, he's suing Tam, he's suing Doug Ford, he's suing the Queen of England, he's suing 7 people in his lawsuit saying crimes against humanity. So he's going to be in the march, and hopefully I will be able to interview him. He's incredibly talented, and he's one of the few people that is actually, from the legal perspective, doing anything to protect us and to defend our freedom. The Toronto, September 12th at also 12, that's also a recurrent one, is in Queen's Park. And Rebel News, which I adore, consistently does coverage of that. We have Vancouver, September 13 at 12 p.m. And we also have Quebec City on September 15 at 12 p.m. This is incredibly important because at 4 p.m. on that day, they are going to register all this legislation that includes Law 61 that makes the emergency state indefinitely in time. So effectively, we lose our freedom that day if we don't stop it. So that's why that march in particular is extremely important. My channel is aiming to transmit this in English as well as Spanish. So it's a big undertaking because it's just me trying to do everything, but I'll do my very best to at least encapsulate the big idea behind each one of different discourses. Of course, the whole objective is to talk about freedom, is talk about no masks, is to talk about the Law 61 that I was sharing with you, and against dictatorship and mandatory anything, masks, vaccine. If you choose to wear a mask, by all means. But if somebody doesn't, it's their freedom, also is their body, and they have the right to choose. So those are the 4 topics that are the main focus for that march.
Excellent. So yeah, pretty much to my point here, it's not about left, right, French, English, immigrant, not immigrant. It's everybody should be concerned, and this is your guys' march. And yeah, so hopefully it'll be successful. We'll see.
Yes, exactly. And one last thing that I wanted to comment is the fact that I started to write down, and you can see it here in my Twitter's comments and every single video, writing I support the police, because I genuinely do. I really respect them. They put their lives on the line every single day. I can't imagine anything more difficult than being part of a family that a member is part of the police force. It's extremely dangerous. I admire them. I support them. Every time I go to a march, I make a point of stopping, smiling at them, interacting with them, and showing them my support, because all these marches are peaceful. All of them are peaceful, and they don't intend in any way to attack the police, do any damage. We just want our freedom back. And the only way to get it is to express ourselves in a very calm manner. This is not about going crazy or doing any kind of destruction or attacking anyone. All the marches I have ever been, that include one in Montreal, so far one in Ottawa, have been the most peaceful things. It's like meeting friends. Everyone is extremely kind, and that includes every single police officer I have ever interacted with.
Yeah, and I think it's possible to make a difference. A lot of people think, "Oh, I can't do anything; it won't change anything." Well, actually, it's the opposite. So it's easy. You can either go for a march, like this one. You can write to your MP, your MLA. Those are all the little things that won't necessarily get you in trouble. But if 40 million Canadians would do that, it would put a stop to the entire masquerade right away. And I just wish that people would realize that the power that they have, because in reality, if you I forgot, it's called a social contract, I think. The idea behind it is that we, the people, have 100% of the power 100% of the time. We give it to the government as long as they take care of us. What's becoming more obvious now is that they are not working in our interest. They're working for everybody else but us. And it's time to take that power back and probably unite. And that's why they want us divided. And that needs
Excellent
to
point.
stop. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I
That's
would
part of
say,
the social distancing as well. That's part of the masks. Don't engage. Be a robot. Don't connect. Lose your humanity. Let me control you. You're alone. It's all that.
all right. So, Lisa, would you like to say some closing words?
Yes, my channel is a combination of both facts and how to raise your vibration. Raise your vibration is the most important thing you can do to protect yourself and to protect your body. I typically give three advices that I post on Twitter. Number one is stop the fear. Just trust your body, trust your intuition. Don't let anything, even if you have to wear a mask or you can't wear a mask, whatever the case might be, do whatever you do without fear. Number two is minimize the level of reaction that you have in front of the data. It could be very disturbing. It could be very difficult to digest, but the less amount of reaction we present to those facts, the more calm you will remain and the more powerful you will be. And the third thing is that I write in my tips in Twitter, make sure that you have at least 3 or 4 things that you are grateful for. And every night before you go to sleep, you focus on that. Drink a lot of water and then sit down or go to bed and think about, I'm grateful because I have XYZ. For every person is different, whatever you feel grateful for, so you can raise your vibration. And for the next 6, 7, 8 hours of sleep, you will rest in the most positive manner. And those 3 things are important. So again, stop the fear, minimize reactions, focus on positive things before going to bed.
Right on. So it's good advice. So Lisa, I would like to thank you for coming on, and I would like to wish you good luck for Saturday,
Thank
as
you.
well as for your channel.
Thank you.
And that's all for today, everyone. Thanks for watching. If you don't mind, please on the like and subscribe buttons. It really helps us grow our channels. And until then, we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.